Yuna ran through the night and reached the outpost. Just as the first light of dawn began to color the sky, she had less than one day to save everyone, and she knew that convincing Director Holt was impossible. So she decided not to try. Instead, she went directly to the communications center and used her medical clearance to access the emergency broadcast system. Then, she sent a message to every human settlement on Vareth 4 and to the Colonial Administration Station in orbit. She told them everything. She explained the alliance that had been built between humans and Clan Vareth and the trust that had been growing between two peoples who had never trusted each other. Before she described what Director Holt had done and how he had ordered the violation of the most sacred place in Korath culture against the advice of everyone who understood the consequences. She made clear that unless something changed, every human on this world would die. And not because the Korath were evil, but because their honor had been insulted beyond what any culture could forgive. And then she waited. Holt found her within the hour. "What have you done?" he screamed, and his face was red with fury. "You have destroyed your career, and you have undermined corporate authority, and I will have you arrested and shipped off-world in chains." "Maybe," Yuna replied calmly, "but first, you should check your messages." Holt's communication device had been buzzing constantly since Yuna's broadcast went out, and when he finally looked at the responses, his face went pale. The other colonial settlements were horrified by what he had done. The orbital administration was demanding his immediate removal, and the company headquarters had sent a priority message stripping him of authority pending investigation. "This is not possible," Holt whispered. "You thought you could treat another intelligent species like obstacles to be removed." Yuna said quietly, "You thought their culture and their ancestors and their sacred places did not matter because they were different from us, and you were wrong." Within hours, everything changed. Holt's security team received orders to stand down, and colonial officials from other settlements arrived to take command of the situation. The survey team was withdrawn from the ancestor canyons. With a formal apology broadcast on every open channel, Yuna herself walked back into Korath territory to deliver the news to Chieftain Drothak. "Your sacred grounds have been cleared," she told him. "The one responsible has been removed from power, and the other human leaders have condemned his actions." Drothak listened in silence, and when she finished speaking, his expression was unreadable. "Words are easy," he said finally, "but words alone cannot balance the scales, and an insult was given to my ancestors, and that insult must be answered." Yuna had known this moment would come. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Then answer it with me," she said. "I am the bridge between our peoples, and I am the one who started this alliance, and if someone must pay the price for what was done, let it be me." The hall fell silent. Every Korath present stared at the small human who had just offered her life to satisfy their honor. Drothak rose from his seat and walked toward her, and he seemed even larger up close, and Yuna had to force herself not to step back. "You would die for your people?" he asked. "If it would save them, yes. And if it would save mine?" Yuna met his eyes without flinching. "I already proved that once," she said. "When I saved your daughter." Before Drothak could respond, Salith pushed through the crowd and stood beside Yuna. "Father," she said, and her voice rang through the hall. "This human has paid the debt twice over, and first, when she saved my life, and second, when she risked everything to prevent war and protect both our peoples." She turned to face the assembled warriors. "Our law says that outsiders cannot hold clan honor," Salith continued. "But Yuna has proven that law wrong, and she has shown more honor than many who were born with it, and I say that no further judgment is required." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Thasek stepped forward and added his voice. "I named her clan friend after she shared her water with me in the desert," he said. "She could have let me suffer and saved herself, but she chose to help me instead, and that is not the action of a weak creature, and that is the action of a true warrior." More voices joined in, and more Korath spoke of what they had witnessed. And the small human who had changed their understanding of what outsiders could be. Finally, Drothek raised his hand in silence. Feli looked at Yuna for a long moment, and something shifted in his ancient eyes. In all my years, he said slowly, I have never seen an outsider earn the respect of my people as you have done. I have never seen courage and honor displayed so clearly by one who was not born to our ways. He reached down and took Yuna's hand in his massive clawed grip. I offer you something that has never been offered to an outsider before, Drothik declared. A place in Clan Vorath, and not as a guest or a servant, but as clankin and as a member of my own blood. Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes. I accept, she whispered. A roar went up from the assembled Korath, and it was not a sound of anger, but of welcome. In the weeks that followed, the relationship between humans and Korath on Vorath 4 transformed completely. Other clans sent delegations to learn about the alliance, and trade agreements were signed, and mutual defense pacts were discussed. The story of the human mech who had saved a chieftain's daughter and then saved both their peoples spread across the planet and beyond. And 3 months later, when raiders from off-world attacked the human settlements with weapons and ships in overwhelming numbers, they expected easy targets. They expected soft creatures who would surrender or die. What they found instead was something they never anticipated. Before the colonial defense forces could even mobilize, the raiders saw movement on the horizon. Korath warriors emerged from the canyons in numbers that blocked out the sun, and at their head rode Chieftain Drothak with Yuna at his side. The raiders had come to pillage and destroy. They had not expected to face an entire clan defending their human allies with the same ferocity they would show defending their own children. The battle was short. The raiders fled, and as the dust settled, Yuna looked out at the warriors who had come to protect her people. And she understood that what had started with one simple act of kindness had grown into something that would change this world forever. She had saved one life, and an entire clan had answered. 2 weeks after Yuna had saved Salith, the alliance between Clan Vorath and the human outpost had grown stronger than anyone could have predicted. Trade had begun between the two peoples, and joint patrols protected borders that had once been contested. And there was even talk of building a permanent meeting place where humans and Korath could gather in peace. Then the transport ship arrived from off-world, and everything changed. Director Marcus Holt stepped off the ship with a security detachment of 20 armed guards and a smile that did not reach his eyes. He was a representative of the Varath Mining Corporation, and he had come with new orders from the company headquarters. Impressive progress here, Commander Sum, Holt said as he surveyed the outpost. I see you have been making friends with the locals. His tone made it clear that he did not approve. The alliance with Clan Vorath has been beneficial for everyone, Sung replied carefully. They provide protection and resources, and in exchange we share our technology. Yes, well, that is about to change, Holt said. Corporate has decided to expand our mining operations, and the most valuable deposits are located in the canyon territories. Sung felt his stomach drop. Those territories belong to the Korath, he said. They belong to whoever has the power to take them, Holt replied coldly. And the Korath are primitives with spears, and we have modern weapons, and the math is simple. You cannot do this, Sung protested. We have an alliance with Clan Vorath, and breaking it would. Would what? Holt interrupted. Make the lizards angry, and that is what the security team is for. And now show me to my quarters, Commander. Over the next few days, Holt made his intentions clear, ordered survey teams to prepare for expeditions into Korath territory, and he brought in heavy equipment for excavation, and he dismissed every warning that Sung and others tried to give him. Yuna watched this happening with growing horror. She tried to speak with Holt directly, but he refused to meet with a mere field medic. She tried to convince Commander Sung to stop him, but Sung explained that Holt had authority from the company that superseded his own. My hands are tied, Sung admitted with frustration. If I disobey direct corporate orders, I will be removed from command and replaced with someone even more willing to follow Holt. Then Holt did the worst thing possible. He sent a survey team into the Ancestor Canyons. The Ancestor Canyons were the most sacred place in all of Korath territory, and they were where generations of clan chiefs had been laid to rest, and where the spirits of the honored dead were believed to watch over their descendants. No outsider had ever been permitted to enter. When word of the violation reached Clan Varth, the response was immediate and terrifying. Korath warriors massed at the border in numbers that the humans had never seen before, and war drums echoed through the canyons. And the air itself seemed to vibrate with rage. Chieftain Drothuk sent a message to the outpost: return the intruders immediately or face the consequences. Holt refused. Let them come, he said confidently. Our weapons will cut them down before they reach the gates. Yuna knew he was wrong. She had spent enough time with the Korath to understand that they would not stop until every human on Vareth 4 was dead. Their honor had been insulted in the worst possible way, and they would accept nothing less than complete vengeance when the Korath captured the survey team instead of killing them. Yuna saw a tiny window of opportunity. She went to Commander Sung one final time. Let me go to them, she said. Let me talk to Chieftain Drothuk and try to fix this. He will kill you, Sung replied. Maybe, Yuna admitted. But if I do nothing, he will kill everyone here. And at least this way, there is a chance. Sung looked at her for a long moment and then slowly nodded. Go, he said quietly, and may whatever gods exist watch over you. Yuna walked into Korath territory, alone and unarmed. Warriors who found her did not attack, but they did not greet her kindly either. They escorted her in silence to the great hall of Clan Vorth, where Chieftain Drothak waited. He was enormous, even by Korath standards, and his scales were dark as obsidian, and his eyes burned with a fury that made Yuna want to run, but she stood her ground. Chieftain Drothuk, she said, and her voice did not shake. I have come to speak with you. You have courage, human, Drothuk replied, and his voice was like thunder. But courage will not save your people from what must happen, and your kind has insulted my ancestors. And that insult can only be answered with blood. The one who sent that team does not speak for all of us. Yuna said, many of us honor the alliance with your clan, and we would never have allowed this if we had the power to stop it. And yet it happened. Drothuk growled. Yes, Yuna admitted. It did, and I'm not here to make excuses, and I'm here to ask for time. Drothuk leaned forward with interest. Time for what? Time to make this right. Yuna replied, I am the one who saved your daughter, and I am the one who created the debt between our peoples, and I'm asking you to let me try to fix what has been broken. Sayla stepped forward from where she had been standing behind her father. She speaks truth, father, the young Korath said. This human has proven her honor more than once, and she deserves the chance to prove it again. Drothuk was silent for what felt like forever. Then he spoke. One day, he said finally, you have until sunset tomorrow to clear our sacred grounds and address the insult, and if you fail there will be no more words between our peoples and only fire. Yuna bowed her head. I understand, she said. Then she turned and ran back toward the outpost with the fate of 2 peoples resting on her shoulders, and less than 24 hours to save them both. 1 week after the Korath delegation first arrived at the human outpost, the alliance between Clan Varth and the colonists had begun to settle into a rout in Ekareth. Hunters brought food and Korath warriors patrolled the borders, and Korath miners shared knowledge about where to find the richest mineral deposits. The humans offered medical supplies and technology and engineering expertise that the Korath found useful, even if they were reluctant to admit it. But not everyone was happy with this new arrangement. Sik was a young Korath warrior who had trained his entire life to prove himself in battle. and he had grown up hearing stories about how humans were weak and cowardly and unworthy of Korath attention. Now he was expected to protect those same humans and treat them as allies, and it burned inside him like fire. This is humiliation, he growled to his fellow warriors one evening as they sat around the fire near the outpost perimeter. We are the greatest warriors on this world, and we bow to creatures who cannot even survive in the open desert. The other warriors shifted uncomfortably, but none of them spoke against him. They all knew that Thasek was voicing what many of them felt the next day. Thasek marched into the outpost and demanded to see the human who had started all of this. When Yuna came to meet him, she had to tilt her head back to look up at his face, and he towered over her by nearly a full meter. You are the one they call Yuna, he said, and his voice dripped with contempt. I am. My clan has shamed itself by honoring a debt to someone like you. Thasek continued. You are small and soft and weak, and I do not believe you truly saved the chieftain's daughter, and I think she survived despite your help and not because of it. Yuna did not flinch from his anger. You are welcome to believe whatever you want, she replied calmly. I demand proof, Thasek snarled. Prove to me that humans have any worth at all, and prove that you deserve the honor my clan has given you. How would I do that? Thasek smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. There is a trial among my people called the Verithwalk, he explained. It is a test of endurance where a warrior must cross the great desert on foot without stopping and without help. And if you can complete this trial, I will accept that humans have some small measure of value. Commander Sung stepped forward from where he had been watching. Absolutely not, he said firmly. That desert is deadly, and I will not allow one of my people to risk their life for a pointless challenge. Yuna raised her hand to stop him. What happens if I fail? She asked Thasek. Then the debt is considered satisfied by your attempt, the Korath replied, and my people can stop pretending that humans are our equals. Yuna thought about this for a long moment. She knew the desert was dangerous, and she knew the Korath physiology was adapted for harsh environments in ways that human bodies were not. But she also knew that refusing would make the Korath believe she was afraid, and that belief would poison everything that had been built between their peoples. I accept, she said. The Verithwalk began at dawn the next morning. Yuna and Thasek stood side by side at the edge of the desert and looked out at the endless expanse of red sand and burning sky. Last chance to withdraw, human, Thasek said. No thank you. They started walking. The first few hours were difficult but manageable, and Yuna focused on putting one foot in front of the other and conserving her energy and drinking water at regular intervals. Thasek moved with the easy confidence of someone who had trained for this kind of challenge his whole life. By midday, the temperature had risen to levels that made every breath feel like inhaling fire, and Yuna's pace had slowed considerably, but she did not stop. When her legs burned, she kept walking. And when her vision blurred from the heat, she kept walking. And when her body screamed at her to rest, she kept walking. Thasek watched her struggle with growing confusion. He had expected the human to collapse within the first hour, and instead she was still moving forward with a determination that he had only ever seen in the most seasoned Korath warriors. Then, something unexpected happened around mid-afternoon. Thasek stumbled, his movements became unsteady, and his scales, which should have been bright with health, began to look dull, and Yuna noticed immediately. What is wrong? She asked. Nothing, Thasek growled, but his voice was weak. Keep moving, human. But Yuna had spent years as a field medic, and she recognized the signs of heat stroke. When she saw them, the Korath were reptilian, and their bodies depended on external temperature to regulate their internal systems, and the extreme heat of the desert was pushing Thasek's physiology beyond its limits. You need water, Yuna said. I'm fine. You are dying, Yuna replied flatly. She pulled the water container from her pack and held it out to him. Thasek stared at the offering with disbelief. That is your water, he said. If you give it to me, you will not have enough. To finish the walk. I know. Then why would you offer it? Yuna looked up at him with steady eyes. Because you need it more than I do right now, she said simply, and because leaving someone to suffer when I can help them is not something I know how to do. Thasek took the water and drank deeply, and slowly his strength began to return. They completed the rest of the walk together and they reached the finish point just as the sun was setting. Neither of them spoke for a long time afterward. Finally, Thasek turned to face Yuna and his expression had changed completely from when they started. I was wrong about you, he said quietly. Most people are. Yuna replied with a tired smile. Thasek reached out and placed his clawed hand on her shoulder in a gesture that Yuna did not understand, but that felt important. From this day forward, I name you clan friend, he declared. You have earned that title through your actions, and I will not question your worth again. What does clan friend mean? Yuna asked. Thasek considered how to explain. It means that you are no longer an outsider, he said finally. It means that any Korath who threatens you threatens me, and it means that you have proven yourself in a way that words alone never could. They walked back to the outpost together, and when they arrived, the humans in Korath, who had been waiting, saw something that none of them expected. They saw their two peoples walking side by side, and they saw the beginning of something new. 3 days after the rescue, Commander Eli Soong stood at the window of his office and watched something he had never expected to see. A Korath delegation was approaching the human outpost, and they were not carrying weapons raised for battle. Instead, they carried ceremonial banners that caught the wind and displayed symbols that Soong did not recognize, but that clearly meant something important. What is happening? He muttered to himself as he grabbed his jacket and hurried outside. The guards at the gate looked nervous, and their hands rested on their sidearms, but they had not opened fire because the Korath showed no signs of aggression. There were 12 of them in total, and at their head walked an old warrior whose scales had faded to a pale gray and whose body carried the scars of many battles. Soong stepped forward and raised his hand in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peaceful greeting. I am Commander Soong, he announced. I lead this outpost, and may I ask why you have come? The old Korath studied him with eyes that had seen much and judged everything. I am Rethus, he replied, and his voice was rough like stone grinding against stone. Speaker for Chieftain Drothek of Clan Vorath, and we have not come for you. Commander, Soong felt confused. Then why are you here? We seek the human called Yuna, Rethus said. The one who found the chieftain's daughter in the canyon 3 days past and saved her life. A cold feeling spread through Soong's chest. What do you want with her? He asked carefully. That is between us and her, Rethus replied. Bring her forward, and we will explain. Soong wanted to refuse, but he knew that angering a Korath delegation would be dangerous for everyone at the outpost, so he sent a guard to find Yuna and bring her to the gate. When Yuna arrived, she looked as confused as Soong felt. You wanted to see me? She asked as she approached the Korath delegation. Rethus stepped closer and examined her with obvious curiosity. You are smaller than I expected, he observed. My people speak of humans as weak creatures and soft and easily broken, and yet you carried the chieftain's daughter for many kilometers and saved her from death. Yuna shifted uncomfortably. I just did what needed to be done, she said. It was not anything special. That is where you are wrong, human. Rethus raised one clawed hand, and the warriors behind him lowered their banners in a gesture that seemed full of meaning. What you did has created something that cannot be ignored. Rethus continued. In our culture, we call it Vorthkan, and in your language, the closest meaning would be blood debt. I do not understand. Yuna said, when someone saves the life of a clan member's child, they create a bond that binds not just themselves but their entire people to the savior and her people. Rethus explained. Salith is the daughter of our chieftain and the heir to Clan Vorath, and by saving her, you have placed all of Clan Vorath in your debt. Yuna shook her head quickly. I do not want anyone to be in my debt, she said. I helped. Saileth because she needed help, and not because I expected anything in return. A course? Strange expression crossed Rethus's scarred face, and it took Yuna a moment to realize it was confusion. You expected nothing? He asked, slowly. Nothing. Rethus turned to look at the warriors behind him, and they exchanged glances that seemed to communicate something Yuna could not understand. In all our history, Rethus said finally, no outsider has ever saved a Karth without demanding payment, and no species has ever helped us simply because we needed it. Well, that seems sad. Yuna replied honestly. Rethus stared at her for a long moment. Perhaps it is, he admitted. But that changes nothing about the debt, and refusal is not possible, and our honor demands that we repay what was given. But I do not need anything from you. That is not how Varathkon works, Rethus said firmly. The debt exists whether you want it or not, and Chieftain Drothak has declared that Clan Vorath will answer what you have done, and we will begin by offering protection and resources to your settlement. Commander Soong stepped forward with alarm on his face. Wait, he said. What exactly does that mean? It means that from this day forward, Clan Vorath considers your outpost under our protection. Rethus replied, we will send warriors to guard your borders and hunters to share our kills and miners to help you find the minerals you seek. And in exchange? Soong asked suspiciously. Nothing. Soong looked at Yuna, and Yuna looked back at him, and neither of them knew what to say. This is unprecedented, Soong managed. Yes, Rethus agreed. It is, and that is because what your medic did was unprecedented. And no Karth has ever owed a human before, and no human has ever earned our respect. He turned his attention back to Yuna. You have done something that many of my people believed was impossible. He told her, you have proven that a human can act with honor, and Clan Vorath will not forget it. The delegation stayed for several hours and discussed the details of their arrangement with Commander Soong, and throughout the conversation, Yuna sat quietly and tried to understand what she had started. She had only wanted to help someone who was hurt. She had not meant to change anything. But when she looked at the Karth warriors talking with human officials and saw two species who had never trusted each other beginning to find common ground, she realized that maybe changing things was exactly what needed to happen. The next morning, the first Karth hunting party arrived at the outpost with fresh meat from creatures Yuna had never seen before, and the morning after that, a patrol of Karth warriors took up position along the outpost's eastern border, where raiders had been spotted in recent weeks. Thus, humans watched with amazement and suspicion and hope, and across the canyon, Territory's word spread that Clan Vorath had done the unthinkable. They had allied themselves with humans because one small soft creature had refused to leave a Karth child to die alone. The ground shook without warning, and Yuna Park grabbed the steering controls of her transport vehicle as rocks tumbled down from the canyon walls above her. She had traveled this route dozens of times during her 3 years on Varathfor, and the seismic activity was nothing new on this unstable mining world. But this tremor felt different and more violent than the one she had grown used to. When the shaking stopped, she sat still for a moment and listened to the silence that followed. Then she heard something else, a sound that made her blood run cold. It was a cry of pain, and it came from somewhere ahead in the narrow passage between the red stone. Yuna stepped out of her vehicle and moved forward carefully, and she knew she was deep in territory that belonged to the Karth clans. The Karth were not friendly to humans. Everyone at the colonial outpost knew the stories about the tall reptilian warriors who ruled the canyon territories of Varathfor, and how they viewed humans as weak and unworthy of respect. But Yuna was a field medic, and the sound she heard was the sound of someone suffering, and she could not make herself turn away from that. She found the source of the cry around the next bend in the canyon. A young Karth Female lay trapped beneath a pile of fallen rocks, and her scaled leg was pinned under a boulder that must have weighed several hundred kilograms. The alien's eyes widened when she saw Yuna approach, and a hissing sound escaped from her throat. "Stay back, human?" The chorus snarled, and her voice carried both pain and warning. "I do not need help from your kind." Yuna stopped walking, but she did not retreat. She studied the situation with the trained eye of someone who had spent years treating injuries in harsh frontier conditions, and she could see that the young Korath was in serious trouble. The leg was badly crushed, and dust from the collapse had filled the air, and the alien's breathing sounded labored and wet. "My name is Yuna," she said calmly. "I am a medic, and I can help you if you let me. I would rather die than accept aid from a soft creature." The Korath spat. Yuna sat down on a nearby rock and folded her hands in her lap. "Then I will wait here with you," she said. Simply, the Korath stared at her with confusion in her yellow eyes. "What are you doing, human?" "I am staying," Yuna replied. "I will not force you to accept my help, but I also will not leave you here alone, and those are the only two choices I know how to make." Time passed slowly in the canyon, and the sun moved across the narrow strip of sky visible between the high walls. The Korath tried several times to free herself, but each attempt only caused more pain and more bleeding from the wound that Yuna could now see spreading beneath the scales of her trapped leg. After perhaps 2 hours, the young alien's resistance began to weaken. "Why?" she asked, and her voice had lost some of its edge. "Why would you stay here for a Korath, when my people would kill you if they found you in our territory?" Yuna considered the question carefully before answering. "Because leaving someone to die alone is not something I know how to do," she said. "It does not matter to me what species you are, or whether your people would do the same for me, and what matters is that you are hurt, and I can help." The Korath was silent for a long moment. "I am Salith," she said finally, "daughter of Chieftain Drothek of Clan Vorath." "That sounds important," Yuna said with a small smile. "It is the reason I cannot accept help from an outsider," Salith replied, but there was less conviction in her voice now. "My bloodline carries expectations, and allowing a human to save me would bring shame upon my clan." Yuna stood up and walked closer. "Would dying here bring less shame?" she asked. Gently. Salith had no answer for that. The work of freeing the young Korath took several more hours, and Yuna used every skill she possessed. She gathered fallen branches and flat stones to create levers, and she wedged them beneath the boulder and pushed with all her strength until a massive rock shifted just enough for her to pull Salith's leg free. The wound was severe, and Yuna cleaned it with supplies from her medical kit and wrapped it tightly to stop the bleeding. Salith had stopped protesting by then, and she simply watched the human work with an expression that Yuna could not read. "Can you stand?" Yuna asked when she had finished. "I do not know." Yuna helped the Korath to her feet and supported her weight as they took a few careful steps together. Salith was taller than Yuna by nearly half a meter, and her body was heavy with muscle and dense scales, but Yuna did not complain as she guided them forward. "Where are we going?" Salith asked. "I am taking you to the edge of your territory," Yuna replied. "Your patrols will find you there, and they can bring you the rest of the way home. You are not coming with me. Your people would kill me," Yuna reminded her, "and I have already pushed my luck far enough for one day." They walked in silence as the sun began to set and the canyon filled with shadows. When they reached the border markers that separated Korath territory from the neutral zones, Yuna helped Salith sit down against a large rock where she would be visible to anyone passing by. "Your patrols come through here regularly," Yuna said. "Someone will find you soon." Salith grabbed her arm before she could turn away. "Human," the Korath said, and there was something in her voice that had not been there before. "Yuna, and why did you truly do this?" Yuna looked down at the hand gripping her arm and then up at the yellow eyes that watched her with such intensity. I already told you, she said softly. I do not know how to leave someone to die, and that is just who I am. She gently pulled free from Sayla's grip and stepped back. Take care of that leg, she added. Keep the wound clean and change the bandages every day, and you should heal well. Then she turned and walked away into the gathering darkness. Before Syleth could say anything more, behind her the young Korath sat alone and watched the human disappear, and felt something she had never expected to feel toward an outsider. She felt grateful, and in the ancient traditions of her people, gratitude was never a simple thing. 3 hours later, Korath warriors found their chieftain's daughter at the border and carried her home, and Syleth told them everything about the human who had saved her life. The news spread through Clan Vorath like fire through dry grass, and in his great hall, Chieftain Drothic listened to his daughter's story, and his expression was unreadable as he considered what must be done. Debt had been created, and among the Korath, a debt was never ignored.